gonna be like, I can't hear me anyway.
Good morning, folks. Jeremy Larkin, host of the St. George Real Estate Morning Drive with Jesse Paul and Jessica Marron, the three J's.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right, Jessica Taggart Marron. The world has been. It's really fascinating how much this election has affected everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's interesting, even including people who are really happy with the result. I think it's just exhausting. And I was on my way here thinking, what is one random thing that I'm grateful for? I'm going to go. I'm going to start.
Go ahead.
I pulled in here and it wasn't, I mean, it was coldish this morning. I mean, it was like upper 30s. It wasn't 20 like in the winter. And I thought, my heated steering wheel, I cannot believe, I didn't buy the car for it. I didn't even realize I had a heated steering wheel for 18 months of owning the car.
That was me with air-conditioned seats.
Oh my gosh.
For 5 summers here, people.
Mm-hmm. You didn't know.
5.
Ouch. I missed that little breeze.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going with my heated wheel. What is one thing? Because I think gratitude is so important for all of us to get recentered. What is one thing?
I am really thankful for good health.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great
We
thing.
take it for granted until we don't have it, and then it can be life-altering, right?
Something sneaks up.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jesse, what's one thing? Before we even talk about real estate and our topic today, which kind of, it's post-election market movements, what home sellers in St. George need to know. What's one thing?
You know what? I am very grateful for a loving wife.
Ooh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I got to get one of those. Anyway. By the way, I'm not married, so don't anybody think that I was throwing my wife under the bus. That was good. Divorce, everybody needs one. Just kidding. You don't. Please don't. Only half of us in America thought that we needed one, But I've been through that. And you know what I'm grateful for, Jesse?
What?
I'm grateful for an incredible mother to my children, though.
Mm-hmm.
And see, I have that. It's been fascinating. We've worked with so many divorcing couples over the years. And when I say so many, I don't mean hundreds, but a number.
Mm-hmm.
And
some are lovely,
but a lot of them,
some
it's
are really
really
brittle.
rough.
It's really hard.
Yeah, it's
for
really
them.
rough.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been able to count that as a blessing,
Mm-hmm.
And so, and these are tough dynamics. One of the things we talk about in our show is that people are always buying, selling, investing, and they're doing so because they're starting families, they're ending families. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
Upsizing, downsizing, divorcing, getting married, all the things. Look, post-election market movements, what sellers need to know. Guys, we'll recap some information that we've talked about over the last several weeks that I think is really important, because if you look today, if you only looked at the stock market yesterday and today, you'd say, well, they elected the right person. You might not think they elected the right person. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are terrified. And one thing I'll say about the political scene is I remember people being terrified in 2020 when the other party was elected. And I remember, right, this goes both ways, and there's this terminal uniqueness that every group that loses each election is convinced that loses every 4 years, that we are more convinced that we were more disenfranchised than the last group. Mm-hmm. And Jesse and I talked about this, and every election, everyone says it's the most important election of all time.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
You realize if you went back to 1960 or 50 or 20, you'd find that they said it was the most important election of all time. And my point is not that it isn't. It's just that I think you have to keep perspective.
A little bit of perspective.
Sure. I think you just have to keep perspective, right?
There's a great woman I follow on Instagram, and her handle is Sharon Says So, and she's a former history teacher.
Wow.
You're smiling.
No,
right? Okay.
no, I don't know Sharon Says So. I'd like this. I'm already smiling because I like the name.
She's really, really sharp, and she's created this big following, just educating people about the government and political parties, et cetera. And she posted something that I actually forwarded yesterday on my stories about Abraham Lincoln. When he won, he was cognizant that half of the country hated him. Yeah. And she even says, the future assassin was sitting in the crowd listening to him, and he was very quick to recognize that not everyone loved him, but that he was going to do a great job for all the people. And I feel like, and he said something about, the division is over, let's become united. And so I think, I don't know, I love that because I feel like I don't consider myself incredibly political, but the divisiveness is exhausting to me.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, if we can just remember, like, I feel like we used to be able to have conversations with people that disagreed with us and still could walk away being friends. And I haven't felt that way for a long time. So I hope that we can get that way because it's life is hard enough without that,
Mm-hmm. And you talk about the divisiveness. Was it last year or the year before that Tony Robbins at Keller Williams Family Reunion talked about, he's like, everybody keeps saying that this is the most divided we've ever been. And then he started pulling up political ads from like the 1800s.
True.
And they were brutal.
They were awful.
And I mean a lot worse than they are now.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And so this actually isn't the most divisive time that we've ever had.
Maybe we're just more civil to each other's faces.
It's more out. There you go.
I think it's what you, Jesse, is about to say.
Yeah.
It's because of media.
Right.
Because it's so out there. And, at your fingertips, you can have the answer to almost anything you want. Just voila.
I heard an interesting perspective last night from a friend that she said, I think it's actually important that you have, maybe it's not perfectly alternated every other, but you have the Democratic or Democrat, as a lot of people say it, or Republican Party, taking turns in power because it brings us back to some sort of a balance.
Kind of an equilibrium.
Yeah, right. And both parties can be really great at their best and they're both terrible at their worst. Doesn't that sound like people?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. It's kind of fascinating. So look, so we sit here today and we talk about the real estate market, and we're in St. George, Utah, and we talk about what sellers need to know after the election. And I want to ask you about what some of the sellers you're speaking to are saying, and what were they saying coming into the election? So we work with a lot of clients. We represent people like you, our listeners, to help you get moved. What are some things you've been hearing from your clients, home selling clients? Like, why are they moving? What are they afraid of? This is like, let's say the last 14 days.
So I've had a few listings that the market is rejecting the price that we listed it.
Oh, yes.
And even though the data supported our listing price, the market is not bringing us an offer. Mm-hmm. And it has been challenging for them to accept that. I had a client last week say, this just wasn't what I expected. And I said, I appreciate that. It's not what I expected either. I mean, looking at the data, it would have supported, the price but I do feel like people have been on the sidelines waiting, just wanting to know the decision. And I think whether or not you are happy with the result, I think there is some peace in the decision just being made of what's going to happen with the economy. Mm-hmm. So, they were reticent to do a price reduction and they wanted to wait to see what happened with the election. So we're revisiting that conversation today. The hard part is that people are still buying and selling homes right now, even in the nebulous decision of who's going to run prior to the election results. So some of it, I think, has been affected by that, just because there are people that are a little bit nervous or were nervous. But the reality is that the market is still telling us what is happening. And if we're choosing to listen or not, that's going to dictate our future, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, and I too am getting this, I heard, it's kind of mixed emotions. I was chatting with a client of mine. We just listed their property on Thursday or Friday last week, listed at wow.
This property, by the way, sounds like it looks like an amazing deal, even at the price that you wanted to list it at. That's what's hard. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No.
I know you're
the one he's talking about.
Yeah.
Well, right. And and this property, it's a phenomenal home. Listed at 470. I should say 460. Listed at 470 in Hurricane. 4 beds, 2.5 baths, 2,800 feet. It's a basement, and a really nice view. And that is something we would expect to move instantly.
Right.
And she said to me on Monday, she said, "Gosh, they're business owners, other business owners, and they own rentals." And she said, "November can always be so tricky, and with an election, it's a double whammy." So I say that's their feeling. They said, "Oh, we hate this double whammy," right? Jesse, what are you hearing?
Mostly I'm hearing, because I work with majority sellers, right? Mostly I'm hearing, well, it's going to be better after the election. It'll be better after the election.
Yeah, same.
And the reality is maybe it will, maybe it won't.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Well, and the reality is if a home is overpriced, no matter how great the economy is, someone's not going to want to pay more than what they really think the value is. So if a home is not priced accurately, doesn't mean, it's not going to help them. Because no one wants to say, oh, well, I have a lot of money in the bank because my stocks are doing great because my party was elected. And I see this home is, $20,000 overpriced. I'm just going to pay it. Why not? No one is going to do that. So we need to help. I mean, it's hard to have them understand that, but the market is going to speak to us.
Yeah.
Here's what I think is interesting. So I'm going to paint the picture of a buyer's mind right now. Even though everything's been expensive for a few years, a couple years. Let's just say a couple years. Very expensive. Right now, we're in the middle of everybody talking about it.
Yep. Correct.
Right, because of the election. So everybody's talking about how expensive it is. And now they're actually buying a home. And then they get to where they're they find the one they want. And then they start looking at the mortgage. And then they're like, ugh.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a listing. It's priced at like just over 400,000. And we did have an offer. The buyer's payment was going to be $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
On a $400,000
Yeah,
home.
that throws people off.
And he was just like, whoa. Mm-hmm. We ended up not being able to pull it together. But isn't that surprising? $400,000 home, $3,000 a month.
Yeah, well, and it's fascinating because for the longest time, and if you're a seller, our job, this is interesting. I've talked about the catch-22 of being a realtor, and the catch-22 is that the sellers always want you to tell them that their price is a really high price or value for their home, or that the market's going up, and buyers are always hoping they can get the price really low and that the market's going down. But that's even a catch-22 in and of itself, because the buyers, they want it to be going down, but they want it to stop the second they buy a home. They meaning all of us as human beings. Yeah. You see all these catch-22s. It's like a forever little trap. And so, for clients, the best way that we can serve you, if you're in this mode of preparing to get your home on the market in 2025, and we're just going to say that this is not even a conversation about 2024. It's November 7th. I mean, people will list their home all the way through the end of the year, but we're not even talking to that. We're talking to people who are plotting and strategizing to get their home on the market. The best way we can help you is to actually help you understand the market in its entirety. Not, let us rub your shoulders a little bit and make you feel better. Remember this, the value of your home is worth significantly more than you bought it for if you bought it 2 years ago and beyond, and probably 3 years ago and beyond.
Yeah, 3 years ago and beyond.
And if you bought it 5 years ago, you're really winning.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at some data on the screen, and we talked about this last week. in 9 of the last 11 elections, which if you want to know how many elections that was back, that was 1980. That was Reagan Carter.
Just a good year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it was. A lot of good babies were born that year. In 9 of the last 11 elections, going back to 1980, 81 was technically going back to 81, but the 80 election, home sales went up after an election. Fascinatingly, they actually went down that year in 1981 after Reagan Carter, and they actually went down in 1989, which would have been George Bush, right?
Yeah.
So fascinating. And well, those were both Republicans. Well, it doesn't tell us anything because they also went up with, right? That's the first piece of data that I want sellers to understand, right? Is that home sales went up in after 9 of the last 11 elections. Mm-hmm. Total home sales this year are forecast to go up by 600,000 sales, from 4.6 to 5.2 million home sales. Well, if you just extrapolate that 4.6 divided by 5.2, so that's a 12% increase. Last month in Washington County, 374 homes sold on the multiple listing service. In 2023, 383 homes sold. So a few fewer homes sold in the month of October this year than last year. Well, all right. Well, what about prices? Well, the average sales price this year was $589. The average last year was $544 in October. The median, what we call the median, the median was $605 this year. It was $599 last year. Yep. The median's rarely higher than the average.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have, if I would have been betting money, I wouldn't have thought that.
I get it. And I'm pulling this straight from the multiple listing service. This is the October market summary, right? Let me tell you this. The average days on market to sell a home was lower this year than last year. Let me take you a step further than that. I guess I could go there. If you look at days on market, it took significantly longer to sell a home. This is kind of crazy. In February, March, and April of this year than it did in October. So maybe what I want to say is, well, people are like, well, what does that mean? Is the market getting better or worse? Yes. The market is always fluctuating. So if you're considering selling your home, like Jessica, what would you start telling a seller right now if they said, I'm thinking about selling my home I want to put my home in the market in January?
So I have a client that is aggressively working to get her home ready. And she has had Lou, our amazing team member, out there fixing stucco, painting, repainting cupboards, little honey-do lists that have been being put off because she wants to maximize every dollar. So she's been working for months. We had the exterior photographed because of the leaves and, the beautiful fall weather. So she's actively working really hard to get it ready. I've had some other clients that were chomping at the bit to get their home listed, and I walked in and every cupboard was out on the kitchen counter, and she was upset that, I explained why it takes us a little bit of time and that we don't want to rush, and that it was hurting her bottom line to have people come in and see the house in that, manner. So if we're thoughtful about it and we're doing all of those things, it does take time, but at the end, it's going to benefit your pocket if you take that time and don't rush.
By more than a little bit.
Absolutely. And Jeremy's talked about this with his listing.
You need tissue? You get
I do.
Up? Okay.
And we're not talking just a couple $100. It's going to benefit them by thousands of dollars.
Jesse, let's...
Well, and bandwidth too, right? I mean, the emotional bandwidth of more days on market, and we say this all the time. If a repair costs $5,000, a buyer is going to think it's $10,000, and a seller is going to think that it's $2,500. And so there's just always this big disparity. So the more we can hold their hand to have it just be this beautiful, enjoyable showing and not have to worry about those things, it's going to benefit them.
Jesse, let me ask you a question. How early is too? I love this. Well, actually, let me ask another question first. Jessica's talking about, so Jessica, how early is too early to get ready to sell your home?
Really don't think you can
So someone putting the home on the market.
Depends. It depends on what needs to be done. But things always take longer than they think. And if there's any work that needs to be done, start hiring the vendors, finding the people that need to come help you.
Can we help? Are you able? Is our team able to help someone find probably every single vendor?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And make decisions about what makes sense.
To be done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse, go ahead.
Well, I think that people don't understand the power of a team. So there's a lot of things that somebody that's just thinking about putting their home on the market, if they're just trying to, let's say my wife and I are bantering back and forth, there's things that we just won't know that we don't know. Mm-hmm. Now, bringing in a team member like Jessica earlier and having her walk through the house and really starting to plan, we're gonna capture those things that we don't know that we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And she's going to say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Did you think about this? Do you need this referral? And the good thing about referrals is we've vetted all these people. We're looking for the best of the best at a fair value.
Well, let me share something. Ken and Connie, great clients of mine. So we work with a lot of empty nesters and downsizers, kind of, it's something that I know that we all have passion about, and Jesse and I have talked about it a lot. We've probably worked with 5 great, in almost every case, couples in a row. One of them was a widow, but working with these people who have,
they're darling.
They're amazing. They're so darling, and when I look at this, Ken and Connie are so fantastic, and in perfect, not perfect, but in great health, said, you know what? This just doesn't right now make sense anymore to manage our home. And what we think we would rather do is move to somewhere where we can have more community and eat really awesome dinners and hang out with friends and not maintain a home. And, it's like they had poured years of love into their home. Mm-hmm. And made so many memories and lived out of state and then moved to Utah and then came back. And then suddenly you wake up and you're like, this feels kind of lonely. Mm-hmm. Well, we worked with Lou, our project manager, to prepare the home and paint the home. And then when we got all the way down to the home inspection with the buyer, and this is like teetering, he came up with a list of items. He said, look, I'd feel a lot better to close on this thing. Per his right to ask for this, they could have said no if you did these things. And we sent our handyman in, and they spent about $499 doing about 5 little repairs. Mm. Jesse, was it worth it?
I think so.
Yeah. Why are you? I'm actually confused about why you said I think so.
Because
Jesse,
I think it was worth it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jessica, do you think it was worth it?
Absolutely, but
I want you to be more forceful.
That's not who I am. But
if you're at the precipice,
gets me every time.
Yeah, if you're at the precipice, Jesse, of losing a deal, is it worth $499?
Absolutely.
Yes.
How much did it actually save them?
Probably thousands.
Well,
and maybe even the whole deal.
Yeah,
because in this kind of a market, buyers are very finicky.
Yeah,
they are fickle as the day is long.
Oh,
right
yeah.
now.
And so 1 minute, guys, but I tell the story. I like to tease him a little bit, but I know him, and he knows. I know how you would guide a client in this situation.
Oh, I would absolutely tell him to do that. But I'm just answering the question. I think it was worth it.
Even after you've done the prep, and there's a point here, even after you've done the prep, you may have some snags come up that just because a buyer finds it, a home inspector finds it. And I'm going to tell you what, that $500 saved them certainly a $330,000 sale. It saved them starting over. And can you imagine you've already moved to a really cool, retirement community, and then you have to start over and go another 2 to 3 months, right? So Jessica, point blank, yes or no, you have 10 seconds. Should people wait for the parade of homes to list their home rather than January?
Absolutely not. Please do not wait.
Yeah.
Do not wait. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Let's get on the market.
It's a mirage.
It's a mirage.
It's a mirage. We're going to stay on, guys. If you're watching us, go to facebook.com/St. George Experts. We're going to chat a few more minutes after we hop off the air, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the parade. I want to talk a little bit more about the parade. Facebook.com/St. George Experts. If you're listening and you're downsizing and trying to find the next nest, I want you to reach out, and we'd love to visit with you and just even give you some guidance and remove some of the stress and overwhelm you might be feeling trying to pare down your home. Visit us at gostgeorge.com. That's GOSTgeorge.com. Over and out. So I want to come back here just because we have a few minutes. Let's talk parade of homes. A lot of sellers that we work with will say, I think I'm going to wait for the parade of homes. Jessica, you said on our live radio show, I asked you point blank, 10 seconds, should people wait for the parade of homes? And you said what?
Emphatically, do not wait.
Emphatically.
Do not wait.
Tell us why.
So I always bring real estate back to shopping or dating.
Oh,
one I was amazing at, the other one I wasn't. So
I'm glad I'm not dating anymore, but
yeah.
You know.
But they always come back. I view the parade of homes like when people go to all of the luxury stores in Las Vegas or Rodeo Drive and window shop. They most of the time are not buyers. They're not real buyers. They're going like they're going to enjoy a museum, right?
Yeah, I was just talking about this with somebody the other day.
Yeah, and so if I meet people, I know people that come and they hit the parade of homes like it's their job for that weekend. They're not coming to shop for homes. So you might get a lot of traffic on an open house if you're doing an open house during the parade of homes, but it's because people are just walking around window shopping. I really don't think that it benefits people to wait, because if people are really waiting if people are really anxious and looking to buy, they're what I call real buyers. They're going to be buying when it is appropriate for their life, right? Not just because it happens to be on the parade of homes. And
let's talk about the Brookwood model that we had in the parade of homes.
Yeah.
In what year was that?
It was 4 years ago.
4 years ago,
I believe.
Was that COVID time? We were masked up.
It was.
So we were representing a company called Sunwood Homes, great builder here in town, and Jessica was highly involved. I was highly involved. She'd been out there kind of running the project for us, and people came into the parade home.
I did find business from that parade home.
For people came back, yeah.
But they weren't buying Michelle's home.
Correct. Right? And here's what happened. People came in the parade home, and I want to say something that first will make you say, oh, you should be on at the parade until I tell the rest of the story. People came in and said, can we buy this home? It was pre-sold.
Yep.
Oh, well, you should have your home in the parade of homes. Do you know why they came in and asked if they could buy that home? It was a parade home.
Yep.
Staged to the nines, with thousands of people pouring through. The concept of scarcity was alive and well.
And
does this make sense? You see, people come into parade homes. And by the way, do we know builders with high-end homes that didn't sell them during the parade?
Yep.
Sometimes years. Guys, we've seen years pass without a parade home selling. Where they went too far.
In fact, the last 2 years have been brutal for that.
Yeah.
More than one have gone unsold months after the parade.
Correct, right? So, Jessica, to your point, you say don't wait. Well, the reason people wait is they think that for the parade of homes is they think, oh, well, all these extra buyers will come to town. Someone will buy my home or pay more than is higher than market. But the reality is that when you looked back at that, did we see a spike in actual closed home sales for the average home in St. George? No, never seen it. Jesse, the PGA Tour and Senior Games and the St. George Marathon happened in a 21-day period. Mm-hmm. Did you see a spike in activity and people offer on your listings because of it?
No.
Actually, quite honestly, we sort of set our show up today with this. The last 40 days have actually been a little bit like
crickets.
It's called, a little, that was a bird.
That was a good bird.
Yeah.
But it was.
Anyway, I want you to think of the bayou and the crickets. The market has actually been inordinately slow. And we can obviously say, look, there was a presidential election that, 50% of the country wanted one thing and 48 wanted the other, apparently, based on the polling data. But all we're saying is don't wait. However, what you can do is be back to the conversation we just had. You can be more thoughtful in how you prepare your home for sale, right? Jesse, tell us about some of the home sellers that what are people afraid of? What are they working on? Where are they going? For instance, let's rattle off 3 sellers that you're working with right now, why and where they're going. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've got
obviously, we're
one
anonymous
seller
about names.
that's moving back to the Midwest to be closer to family. They moved out here, didn't realize how important family was.
Where in the Midwest?
Ohio.
Okay. Ohio is what I always use in our silly scripting role playing. I didn't know anyone moved there.
I've got one seller that's actually just wanting to move up. They're selling a 3-bedroom home, trying to find a 4-bedroom home locally. I've got 2 sellers that are actually moving into assisted living homes. They are at that point in life where they're just wanting to have nothing to take care of and things taken care of for them.
Yeah, I mean, hey, dinner's ready. Come on down. Pretty awesome.
So I've got another couple moving to Wyoming for a new job.
Yeah. Okay, this is really good to hear what things are doing. Okay, some of the clients I'm working with, we have one moving to assisted living, moving into Ovation, and phenomenal people. I have a guy who owns what was a nightly rental in Sand Hollow Resort. They had some big changes in the HOA, the way that they were managing that. And he said, you know what? I'm not even using this. I'm barely even renting it in the rental pool. He bought a vacation rental thinking 2 things. A, that he would make more money at the rental part, and B, thinking he would come to St. George and use it more. And he realized that C, he could have made better money throwing his money. He said, literally, dude, I could have put it in a high yield interest savings account at 5% and done far better. And had he been in, an S&P 500 index fund. I have another client. They own a dental practice in town. That's their core business. And they own 10 or 12 rentals. And they're selling this rental to liquidate cash to purchase property in another town for a commercial project they've got going. So those are just some of the scenarios we're in. Jessica, what are some of your sellers? What are some of the motivations?
I have some sellers that are wanting to go back up north. They realize they're just spending a lot of time on the road to visit their grandkids and want to be closer to kids and grandkids. I have sellers that are doing the same thing, but they're moving to Idaho, back home to Idaho. I have a beautiful luxury property in the Ledges that's kind of same thing. They built this beautiful home. We actually met at Michelle's parade home.
Yeah.
And
so 4 years ago, you met a client.
And took a year to build. They've owned it for a couple of years. They just found they aren't coming down here as often as they thought, and justify the cost of it. They'd rather put their money in a property in a different part of the country where they're headed more often. So, and then I have someone else that's trying to sell a rental. It's got an ADU property. So it's a home with an attached ADU or accessory dwelling unit. And he's trying to liquidate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
interesting because
and then I have a woman that is also moving into assisted living.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to add one more into this. I've got an incredible, cute little historic home, the Seavey home, downtown St. George, where it was their primary residence, and it has a nightly rental permit on it. And then it was a primary residence, and then they started living part-time in Pennsylvania. So it was their part-time residence, and they would rent it short-term. Then they fully moved to Pennsylvania and just came here a couple times a year. And now they said, we don't even need the home. Here's what I want to say, and here's why I'm even sharing this, because I think it's really helpful for the public, especially people who are thinking of selling home, to say, well, what are people up to, right? Why are people moving? We are kind of pack animals in a bigger way than we thought we were, than we think we are. And right. And we say herd animals, if you want to say it. Is it safe? Are other people doing what I want to do? I sent an email yesterday to our database. dated 11/6/24, 8:36 a.m. with a picture of the sun rising. And I said it was inevitable. Someone was going to win, and roughly 48% of the country would be happy, and roughly 48% would be terrified. And there was somewhere in between. And you realize that there are folks who actually voted for the winning for Trump who are still terrified. You know, a lot of people, tell me if you guys think this is accurate. Do you guys feel like a lot of people voted for either Harris or Trump because they were trying to do the lesser of two evils, but they actually didn't even believe in that candidate either?
I think that happens.
You know that's true.
I think that happens almost every election, quite honestly.
Yeah, because they say we have choice when we vote.
Yeah.
What do you mean you have choice? You have two choices. It's chocolate or vanilla. It's you know what I mean? Yeah, that was hilarious. That almost sounded like a racial joke. That was awesome. But you know what I mean? It's like you're a shopper. Mm-hmm. If you walked in and they're like, "We've got great news. There's 2 pairs of shoes in the entire store. Yeah. You pick."
Yeah.
Not fun.
No. So
did you really have choice? Well, you had the choice of 2 options.
Or not voting. But then
yes.
I don't feel like you get to have
or
an
writing
opinion
in.
If you don't. Right.
Or writing in. And so I said 48% of the country would be terrified. 48 would be happy, ? It happened in 2020 and 2016 before that and all of the previous elections. And in every case, we cried, this is the most important election of all time. And it likely was and will be again. And yet the sun came up. And I want to tell a story. My 18-year-old, I shared this with some of you yesterday. I called my 18-year-old son. He's been 18 for like 45 days. It's Tuesday. And I said, hey, what are you up to? I called him to talk about Bryan Head Ski Resort, which is opening Friday, Jessica and Jesse, tomorrow.
Yeah, I knew that.
And tomorrow afternoon, I will ski. They're only opening 1 chair. It's dumb. They could have easily opened 2 chairs. I don't know why they didn't just blow more snow. Probably because they wanted to soft open it and not staff the whole resort. Mm-hmm. So they're opening the Navajo chair. And we're going to go up tomorrow when he gets out of school about 11. And we are going to ski the afternoon. And so I said, what are you up to? And he said, I'm pouring over this ballot. It's heavy, dude. I said, what? I said, oh my gosh, wait, my son can vote. Turned 18. They sent him a ballot. And he said, yeah, I'm online and I'm researching the candidates and the parties. And he said, and even then I still don't know what's real. Isn't that true? Of course you feel that.
That's so
right.
Good.
And so
I love Matthew.
Is this sweet?
He's so great.
I had this proud moment, and I'm telling you what I wrote in this message. And I went on to say, he did it, and he did so on his own accord, and I did not tell him anything about who he should vote for. We just talked. He delivered an incredible lesson that's so easy to forget when we're freaked out about external factors. All we can control is ourselves, our attitudes and our actions. We vote, or we don't, or we write in, we care for our families, and we sweep our side of the proverbial street. Well, the question was asked, what does this election outcome mean for my home value in the real estate market? Well, a couple of things I want to say, and I will link the video we did. Jesse and I did a show last week, which was that exact topic.
Yeah.
It was the topic that we're talking about. And I will link it in the show notes. If you didn't watch the whole show, it was the entire preemptive conversation about
what happens
about
after election.
What happens after the election? Okay.
So
go ahead.
Well, and this is going to sound reductive to some people, and I don't mean for it to, but yesterday my husband had a little health scare, and we spent the entire day in the ER. And
turns out it was a bad piece of chicken. Just kidding. I don't know. That just seemed fun to say.
It's going to be all right. Thankfully, it could be so much worse, but it was very scary, in the interim. And I did there was a lot of time to think as I was sitting there. And yes, I was thinking about the results of the election, but it was very stark contrast of I was just in the moment of what was happening in my life. I would have been feeling the same way had the other candidate won. Like what you said is we have to live our lives. We have to take care of our families the best that we can. We have to be kind to our neighbors, and those things we have control over. Those things are the things that are going to make our world better or not. And so, yes, it matters who wins. It affects things. Who wins affects things. But ultimately, we aren't that powerful to control all of that. We have to just kind of worry about our narrative and change and impact the world or our world, if that makes sense, our bubble.
Well, and I love this because there's an attitude that happens after every election, which is the losing group cries out, all is lost, right? And
like the world's going to end.
No, well, and look, and I want to be sensitive because I understand that people felt that way 4 years ago. But I also want to say to those people 4 years ago, it didn't end.
Life went on.
And you still, you still have your family and your world that you need to lead. But I went on to say this, okay, and I'm sharing the email right on our screen. We did a video, it's 25 minutes on exactly the high points that I'm about to give, and I linked it. Here are the high points. 23% of prospective first-time home buyers were holding off until after the election. Sound accurate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
This is duh. This isn't surprising. Home sales went up after 9 of the last 11 elections.
Yep.
Which is going back to 1980, right? Carter Reagan, Jesse.
Yep.
Home prices, that was home sales. Home prices went up after 10 of the last 11 elections. They only went down after the Obama-McCain election.
Yep.
Which was not, it
to
was
do with
recession related.
Yeah, that was on.
We brought it
that
on
was
ourselves.
And this is something I'm going to point out, and I love it. You said it. Remember that whatever happens this year may have nothing to do with who was elected.
Exactly.
Yep. It has to do with what was coming.
Because
2008 was falling apart. I will say this, guys. Home prices are too expensive nationwide for our population.
Yeah.
I don't make reality, I just report on it. Something is going to have to change, and that is either rates will have to drop significantly or prices will have to fall. But let me give the rest of the high points real quick. Home sales are projected to go up by 600,000 units in 2025. Jesse and I love to talk about forecast home values to go up in 2025 by 2.6%. But here's the interesting thing. How local, Jesse, is real estate? Can it be so local that it's just your neighborhood?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You notice I didn't say I think.
Yeah. Thank you.
Poor guy, because even if you're saying, I think so, the way that he said it was just sounded dubious. And
so
I was like, he's a politician. He's trying to talk out of both sides of his mouth. Well, so afraid to offend anybody, right?
That's true.
Jesse.
Yeah. Oh, I've offended someone this morning. So there you go. No, really. I had somebody frustrated with me this morning. So there you go.
There you go.
And I feel badly about that. And I also realize that from a little psychological perspective, it's not fair to say, well, that's on you. But it is fair to say we all have to manage our own emotions. As a matter of fact, I have to manage my emotions about the fact that I bothered someone this morning. I think someone was bothered by something I did, right? And so we all have to manage them. But look, here's the main point. The Dow, NASDAQ, and S&P 500 hit records yesterday. They're up again this morning. People will continue to buy, sell, and invest in real estate. They will continue to flock to St. George, and some will flee, which, guys, I called in this email the real estate circle of life, right? So, there you go. This is the reality of them as we start to kind of wind our show down today.
Yes, and that's the hard part about trying to predict St. George. Because if we just look at local stats, we are so much overvalued. Mm-hmm. But we're not necessarily driven just by local stats. We have so many people coming here from outside that help fuel our economy. But if we were just a normal town where people, weren't flocking to live here or to have a second home here, we are definitely overvalued because our median income, household income is what, $60,000? To buy a median home in St. George, your income needs to be what, 100? Those numbers don't add up.
Well, Jesse, your income right now needs to actually be about 120.
120.
Household income of 120, right?
So that's what's hard, right? So if that was the only data we were going by, then home values or interest rates have to come down. One of the two have to happen. because the local families can't afford it. Now, 35% of our market is actually coming from outside. Mm-hmm. They're bringing money. So that's where it's hard. We can't, how do you predict that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or stop it, right? I mean,
right.
Well, and on this theme, guys, of downsizing and empty nesting, I can't think of a better place to move to if you want to downsize an empty nest. And I can't imagine a better place to move not from, but to downsize in than Washington County, right? So we have a lot of downsizers, empty nesters who are moving in, especially Salt Lake and those kinds of areas. And then, but if you're maybe moving laterally here, and laterally just saying, hey, you're staying locally, but maybe you're going to go from a 6-bedroom, 4-bathroom home that was really great for you and your family, but the last one you just kicked them out. And you're like, this is lonely. And how did we get all this stuff? Does that sound accurate, Jessica, when you talk to clients? What a great place. I want to read. I'm going to wrap up our show today. By the way, guys, it's been so fun having both of you in here. The election happened. Now what was the email I sent out? Someone sent me an email, and I'm going to leave the name off, where prospective buyers visited in February. We'd already reached out to Jesse, which is why we're on your mailing list. I wanted to respond to this email because I loved it. I know exactly who it is. It's who you and I just talked about. She just sent me an email. I love that story of your son, and it shows you've done an amazing job parenting and raising a thoughtful son. Isn't it funny? I didn't even tell him to do it, which is awesome. We contacted another realtor this year before reaching out to Jesse, and I had followed their Facebook thinking I would get new listings and information to learn about the area. Unfortunately, they thought it was okay to post a derogatory political post page on the meme on their page. I decided not to work with them, not because we didn't agree on politics, but because I thought it was hateful and hurtful to various groups of people. I'm at the end of my career, and I'm not sure why someone who's aspiring and young in their career would do something like that. Look, this is emotional, guys. It was later removed after I had a discussion with them who had been in contact, but ultimately wasn't right. I Googled around and found Jesse and found positive things. I was told that he is someone we want to work with, right? This email reiterates our decision to work with your firm. We haven't met him yet, but we were reaching out. Maybe Jesse. This is actually not the same one. We'll be reaching out early January since we will be there the first week of February, because we have moved and bought and sold many times. We are pretty clear on what we want. We think we know where we want to be in the area, and we want to learn more when we visit before making any decisions. Your videos and information have been helpful in understanding your market area. Thanks again about sending this positive communication and sharing the story of your son. We are looking forward to our trip.
It just makes cool? My heart.
Is that cool?
Happy.
Isn't that fun? This is real time. I opened up the email to find it. Yeah. She emailed me at 4:49 a.m. But I opened up the email.
She's on the East Coast. So
I opened up. Yeah, you know who it is. That make you happy?
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting to hear, if you're a realtor and you're listening to our show. It's interesting to know the way that we see things, that people see things. So, guys, Jessica, Jesse, how can people?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Oh, so fun. You are welcome. I think people can reach us all at gostgeorge.com, GOSTGeorge.com, or they can Google the Larkin Group, and they will find the Larkin Group. And we have fun doing this. And I'm going to wrap up with my own. You're going to love this political tirade, which isn't even a tirade. I honestly don't mind who you voted for. I just don't, guys. I don't care who you are if you're a client. And I'm going to tell you something. I felt that way a week ago and 3 days ago and 36 hours ago. I really don't mind. Do you know what I just noticed? I didn't say care. I think care can be negative. Mm-hmm. It's fine, right? We're all going to live
That's
and breathe.
The beauty of the United States of America.
Yeah, we're all going to live and breathe in these communities. Mm-hmm. I hate the hateful rhetoric from both sides.
Yes,
oh my gosh. Right?
It's exhausting and just not really who we should aspire to be, truly.
So there you go. You go easy on the hateful rhetoric, but here we all sit. GoStGeorge.com, the Larkin Group, over and out.
Thanks for having us.